February 19th, 1986, 6 p.m., Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A white Cadillac rolled into the parking lot of a Salvation Army halfway house on Airline Highway. The driver, Adler Berryman Barry Seal, reached for his briefcase, unaware that a brown Buick had been following him. Two Colombian gunmen stepped from the shadows and opened fire with a MAC-10 submachine gun. 7 bullets tore through his body. His 300-pound frame collapsed onto the steering wheel, causing the horn to blare continuously. Barry Seal died in the driver's seat, clutching a handwritten phone number for the office of Vice President George H.W. Bush. Just 3 years earlier, Seal had been the most productive cocaine pilot in the history of the Medellin cartel. He transported more cocaine into the United States than perhaps any smuggler before or since. He worked for Pablo Escobar, the Ochoa brothers, the DEA, and, depending on who you believe, possibly even the CIA. Tom Cruise portrayed him in American Made, but the real story is far darker. To understand how Barry Seal became one of the most important witnesses in American criminal history, you have to go back to July 16th, 1939, the day he was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His father sold candy wholesale, and his childhood was largely ordinary, except for one obsession: airplanes. Seal took flying lessons at 15, soloed at 16, and earned his pilot's license before he was old enough to legally drink. By age 21, he was flying with the Civil Air Patrol. In 1964, at just 25 years old, he joined Trans World Airlines, TWA, becoming one of the youngest command pilots in company history. He flew Boeing 707s internationally, earned an excellent salary, and appeared to have the perfect career. But Seal craved excitement. Fellow pilots described him as fearless and reckless. Reports later suggested he may have performed contract work connected to U.S. intelligence operations in Latin America during the 1960s, though details remain disputed. What is documented is that in 1972, he was arrested in New Orleans for allegedly attempting to smuggle 7 tons of plastic explosives to anti-Castro groups in Mexico. The charges were eventually dropped, but TWA fired him. That decision changed everything. Rather than return to legitimate aviation, Seal entered the growing smuggling world. During the late 1970s, he transported marijuana and pills. By the early 1980s, he recognized that cocaine would become America's most profitable illicit commodity. In 1981, Barry Seal met the Ochoa brothers of the Medellin cartel. The cartel controlled much of the world's cocaine trade, but needed reliable aviation. Seal offered exactly that. He claimed he could move hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Colombia to Louisiana in a matter of hours with minimal losses. The cartel gave him a chance. In December 1981, Seal completed one of his first major cocaine runs, landing near Baton Rouge with roughly 600 kilograms of Colombian cocaine. The shipment carried a street value of tens of millions of dollars, and Seal earned around $500,000 from the flight. Pablo Escobar personally thanked him. Seal quickly became one of the cartel's most valuable assets. His innovation was scale. Instead of using small aircraft, he operated larger cargo planes capable of carrying enormous quantities of cocaine. At his peak, he owned multiple aircraft, including a converted C-12 3K provider known as the Fat Lady, capable of transporting approximately 12,000 pounds of cocaine in a single trip. His routes took him from hidden Colombian airstrips across the Caribbean, and into remote landing strips throughout Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Each successful flight generated roughly $500,000. By 1983, SEAL had allegedly completed more than 100 runs and helped move billions of dollars worth of cocaine into the United States. His personal fortune was estimated at tens of millions of dollars. He owned businesses, ranches, shell companies, and properties throughout the Americas. He lived a double life. He had a wife, Deborah, and 5 children. He coached Little League and occasionally attended church. At the same time, he carried large amounts of cash, maintained multiple passports, flew mistresses around the Caribbean, and worked directly with some of the most dangerous criminals on earth. Then the DEA caught up. In 1983, federal investigators in Florida uncovered evidence linking a mysterious Louisiana pilot known as the Fat Man to major cocaine trafficking operations. A grand jury indicted SEAL for conspiracy to import cocaine. Facing severe prison time, SEAL made an extraordinary move. Instead of fleeing, he approached the federal government with an offer. He claimed he could help expose the Medellin cartel from the inside if prosecutors reduced his charges. The DEA agreed. SEAL became a confidential informant and continued operating inside cartel networks while secretly gathering evidence. In 1984, he flew a DEA-sanctioned mission into Nicaragua. Hidden cameras installed aboard his aircraft allegedly captured cartel figures and individuals linked to Nicaragua's Sandinista government loading cocaine onto his plane. The images were politically explosive because the Reagan administration was attempting to build support for anti-Sandinista forces known as the Contras. The photographs were leaked to the press. When cartel leaders saw them, they immediately understood what had happened. Barry SEAL had betrayed them. From that moment forward, he was marked for death. Despite the danger, SEAL continued cooperating with authorities, testifying before grand juries, and helping build cases against key cartel figures. Meanwhile, he operated extensively from Mena, Arkansas. This period remains controversial. Various journalists and investigators have alleged that SEAL's aircraft were connected to broader covert operations involving weapons shipments to Central America during the era of the Iran-Contra affair. The CIA has denied direct involvement, and many claims remain disputed. What is documented is that federal investigations into activities surrounding Mena generated years of controversy and speculation. In late 1984, SEAL faced additional money laundering charges in Louisiana and was convicted. The judge, Frank Polizzola, refused to place him in the federal witness protection program despite warnings that the Medellin cartel had issued a murder contract against him. Instead, SEAL received 6 months of community service. Every evening at 6 p.m., he was required to report to the Salvation Army halfway house on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. Same place, same time, every day. His attorneys begged for additional protection, but the requests were denied. The cartel was watching. After the Nicaragua photographs became public, Medellin leadership reportedly approved a $1 million bounty for SEAL's assassination. The operation was assigned to cartel enforcers who spent months studying his routines. They knew where he parked, when he arrived, and that he was completely unprotected. On February 19, 1986, they struck. At 5:58 p.m., SEAL parked his Cadillac outside the Salvation Army facility. Moments later, one of the gunmen approached the driver's window and fired 7 rounds at point-blank range. The attack lasted only seconds. SEAL was 46 years old. The assassins fled but were arrested 2 days later. They were eventually convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, although they never publicly identified who ordered the murder. Authorities widely concluded that the hit originated within the Medellin cartel. Yet Seal's death created consequences far beyond a single homicide investigation. Questions emerged about his connections to covert operations, drug trafficking networks, and activities in Arkansas and Central America. 8 months after his death, a cargo plane carrying weapons was shot down over Nicaragua. The surviving crew member, Eugene Hasenfuss, revealed details about a secret Contra resupply operation. The aircraft involved was linked to the same type of C-123K provider Seal had flown. The incident helped expose what became known as the Iran-Contra scandal. Investigations followed. Oliver North became a central figure. Multiple administration officials faced scrutiny, and several were ultimately indicted or convicted. Even in death, Barry Seal remained connected to one of the most controversial political scandals of the decade. Meanwhile, the Medellin cartel eventually collapsed. Jorge Ochoa surrendered in 1991, and Pablo Escobar was killed by Colombian authorities in 1993. But the cocaine trade survived, with new organizations replacing the old ones. Seal's family spent years battling over his remaining assets. Much of his fortune had been hidden, and some of it has never been recovered. In 2015, one of his daughters sued Universal Pictures over American Made, arguing that the studio had used elements of the family's story without proper authorization. The dispute was later settled. Popular culture often portrays Barry Seal as a charming rogue caught between criminals and government agencies. Reality was far more complicated. He transported enormous quantities of cocaine that fueled addiction and violence across the United States. He earned millions working for the Medellin cartel. When law enforcement closed in, he became an informant, largely to save himself. He believed he could outsmart everyone: the cartel, the DEA, and perhaps even the intelligence agencies operating around him. He was wrong. During the final months of his life, Seal understood that the cartel intended to kill him. Friends and attorneys urged him to disappear. According to court records, Seal reportedly said he was tired of running. If the cartel found him, at least he would still be able to see his children while he waited. So on February 19th, 1986, he followed the judge's orders and drove to the Salvation Army halfway house. He parked in his usual spot. He reached for his briefcase. The gunmen were already waiting. That is the story of Barry Seal, a gifted pilot who chose to work for some of the most dangerous men in the world, then turned against them when survival demanded it. In the end, the cartel responded the only way it knew how: with bullets. If you want more deep dives into hidden worlds like this, subscribe now and don't miss the next story.